All right. Oh, all right.
Probably haven't seen in 2 weeks.
Get the rust out. You know what I mean? All right. Assalamu alaikum. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الحمد لله الحمد لله سبحان الله ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. أما بعد. Welcome back to the R2F show after our extended or short little break we had.
Nice little 2 weeks.
So this is going to be, what's that?
We had a nice little 2 weeks off. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, it was 2 weeks. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a short time period. I know it probably felt like a long time to some of our viewers, but so we're gonna catch you guys up on what happened in the meantime while we're off, give you some updates what we're gonna do during Ramadan, talk a little bit about Ramadan, and then give some previews of or talk about some shows we're gonna do after Ramadan. So we'll get right into it. It's going to be a short show. Most of our shows during Ramadan are going to be pretty short, quick to the point, because we know that people have, worship, are focusing on the worship, their ibadah, their learning, and the Ramadan goals. So we have the same thing as well. So we're going to be allowing people to do that and not taking up too much of people's times.
Yep.
All
right. So getting started. All right. So Jafar, you were gone for the past 2 weeks. You want to tell us where you were?
So myself, my wife, and Miss Bahuddin, we were all in Saudi Arabia, alhamdulillah, completing Umrah. Yep. So Miss Bahuddin met us over there, and it was our second time, alhamdulillah. Allah allowed us to go twice to go make Umrah. It was Miss Bahuddin's first time. So it was good because, it was the first time I met Miss Bahuddin in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Great brother, alhamdulillah. He reminds you a lot of my one of my younger brothers. But we hit it off, and it felt good because the last time I went, someone was like showing us around and showing us how to make Umrah, and it felt good to be like the big brother in the situation. Like, hey, this is that. Let's go here. This is how you do this and that. So. And it was a great time, and hopefully, I don't want to spoil it because we'll probably have a show where we just interview Miss Bahuddin and ask about his experiences. The first time, seeing the Kaaba, seeing Masjid Nabawi, paying respects and giving salams directly to Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. We'll see how well he could put it into words, because this is something you can't really put into words, and. We had some fun times over there, some unique experiences on our, visiting some of the historical sites. But we'll talk about that in the future. So that was like the main reason why we had to break. If anybody wanted to know, is that, we had some of our hosts had some personal things to do. We were traveling, time differences. It would have been just too much to try to squeeze in a show or any shows during that time period.
Yeah. So we didn't get like assisted or anything like that. We're fine. Our show's still able to go on live. Sorry, brother Akil, didn't happen. So
yep. We'll read fake attempt at cease and desist or suing us has not bore any fruit. It would have been interesting if he actually did sue us or try to sue us, to see what kind of grimy lawyer would actually take that case, because they know it's not actually a case. They would actually be just sucking his money away from him.
Yeah, I know. Like, you have no kind of stand on, but alhamdulillah. It's not. Yeah, we're not like just trying to scam you out of stuff. So
and I hope for his sake that Hussein's calling me now. He's a little late. I'll message him. But I hope for his sake that he had a chance, because we published the documents on our websites.
Yeah.
We hope anybody else has had a chance to read them. Because it's not any really, his attempt at trying to defend the Seven Sultans was pretty bad. But we've all been there. I mean, I know I've been there. I've tried to defend it in the past, and you realize once you're corrected, there's actually no defense for it whatsoever. Mm-hmm. So hopefully he's at that point. Hopefully he had a chance to read our document and see why that belief has no basis in Islam and is actually contrary to Islam, because if you boil Islam down to one topic, it's Tawheed. And if you boil Risala Ruhi or Seven Sultans down to one word, it's shirk. And shirk is the opposite of tawheed. So it's actually contrary to Islam. So hopefully he learned from that.
Inshallah.
There's one thing I didn't put on the list that I wanted to talk about real quick because someone sent it to me and asked if we could bring it up. It fits in line with two of our segments we used to do. We used to do Shirk of the Day, and we used to guess the fabricated hadith. Well, in this case, it's a fabricated story, and it's complete shirk.
Wait, is this the story of the brother who was like, okay, yeah. All right.
Yep, this is that story.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I gotta find it. It's in our chat. I know that.
Yeah. I'll go first.
Oh, here we go. I got it.
Okay, there you go.
So I'm just gonna read it word for word. I'm not gonna mention the individual that posted this publicly on their status to share with the world. And one thing is that whenever we share misinformation or make a mistake, especially publicly, we should also issue retractions or apologies, because you never know how our words. There's a hadith, and I don't have the exact words, but it talks about how important words are. So we could be doing everything right and then utter a statement that will actually lead us directly to hell, and vice versa. We could be doing everything wrong and utter a statement that will lead us to Jannah. So we have to be very careful about the things we say and the things that we promote to make sure that we're not misleading anybody. And anybody that's actually heard this story or actually believes in a story, there's a real issue here, because it's actually complete shirk. And if you can't recognize that it actually is shirk, then you need to kind of go back to square one and maybe start learning Islam from the basics again. Again, Islam is about tawheed, and this story is full of shirk, as we'll see. So I'll just read it. It'll take a few minutes, but we can just go through it.
1 second. Yeah,
yep. Oh, you're gonna pull it up? Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and it's just reading this, anybody should be able to be like, okay, this, if your eyebrow at least raise, then you should be like, okay, something's wrong. But here we go. So one day, a disciple of Imam Junaid, he's a well-known scholar, a figure in Islam, accepted by all types of groups. But of course, with these figures that are especially promoted and by Sufis, there's a lot of fabricated and fake stories that they associate with them. So one day, Imam Junaid was at the banks of the river Euphrates when suddenly he spotted his master approaching the river. He followed Imam Junaid. Oh no, one day a disciple of Imam Junaid, okay, he was at the river and he spotted his master, Imam Junaid. He followed Imam Junaid, and to his astonishment, watched the Imam approach the river and began walking on the water, saying, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, as he began to cross the mighty Euphrates on foot. I won't say anything right yet, so I'll just read it. The disciple was the disciple was still dumbfounded at this miracle of his sheikh when Imam Junaid, whilst walking on the water, turned around and, smiling at his disciple, called to him to follow his lead, saying, just follow me and keep on repeating the words, Ya Junaid, as you walk on the water, and you will be fine. Trusting in his sheikh, the disciple began to cross the river, and due to his faith, he was able to walk on the water too. As he walked, he kept on repeating Ya Junaid as a litany. When he had reached the middle of the river and the Imam had gone a little further, Iblis, the accursed Satan, suddenly swooped down to him and began his mendacious whisperings in the disciple's ear. Satan said to him, look at the Imam. He is saying Allah's name while he asks you to commit shirk and repeat his own name. Why don't you also trust in Allah alone and say Ya Allah too? So,
all right.
Having said this, the accursed one disappeared. So he descended down and then disappeared, or swooped down and said this and disappeared. The disciple was convinced by the logic of the devil and stopped saying the words Ya Junaid and began to say Ya Allah instead. As soon as he began to repeat the name of Allah, he started to sink into the water. As he was on the verge of drowning, he became terrified and shouted out, Ya Junaid again. Immediately, he rose to the surface of the water and began to walk on the water again. He continued repeating Ya Junaid until he had reached the other bank of the river safely. The Imam had reached the riverbank a few minutes before him. When he had reached the other side of the Euphrates River, he went up to Junaid of Baghdad and asked him, O Sheikh, what is the meaning of this? I was able to walk on the river whilst I said your name, but as soon as I said Allah's name, I began to sink. And yet you yourself repeated Allah's name whilst you crossed the river. Please explain this secret to me.
There we go.
And then Junaid supposedly said, you are trying to reach Allah, and yet you haven't even reached Junaid yet. So that's the story. And I guess this individual was contacted to, take it down, but I guess they didn't find any problems with it. I guess people support this. They're members of a known cult group that their beliefs are filled with shirk. But man, like
that's a lot.
There's a lot to unpack here. So I just a few things that just popped up in my head while I was reading it is one, whenever you have these stories, right, you gotta pay attention to what's being said and how it's being said. So like when you have like authentic narrations, they come first of all from the first person. Like I heard so and so say, or I seen such and such.
Yeah.
Now, in this story, it actually discounts itself because it's being told in the third person, and it doesn't have any like narration of like, so the person Junaid told me this, the disciple told me this, or I seen these people walking on water.
It just says one day this happened. Yeah.
Just like one day, a brother and sister went into the woods named Hansel and Gretel, and they ran into a witch in a shoe or something. Like this is what this story is. It's a fable. Mm-hmm. Straight up.
I also don't understand like that the most key word there at the end was secret. Like that's the whole Sufism thing just tied into secret. Like that word is just synonymous with Sufism. I don't know what it is about them trying to have the one up on everyone else, but yeah, I need them to like stop it. Like
it's just that whole idea of like we have secrets that nobody else has, but you know what? I'm gonna tell you the secret
right here. Yes, and in order for you to get to Allah, you have to get to the human first. Like that's not how this works.
And then like you have Shaitan descending down or swooping down. Usually when you talk about stuff descending or coming down, you're talking about angels, mercy, rahma. You know what I mean? But now you got Shaitan sweeping down and convincing the person to actually dhikr Allah.
Yeah, Allah's name. I'm about to say, yeah, Shaitan coming down. It's like, hey, listen, be a Muslim. Like, what are you doing? you're over here on Shirk. This is too easy for me. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. And then
when I said your name, I started.
Obviously, that was the wrong advice because he was supposed to dhikr his sheikh's name instead. And that's the moral of this story is that don't remember Allah, don't pray to Allah, don't dhikr to Allah, dhikr to your sheikh, right? So, and I want to pay attention to the last quote, which is basically the moral they're trying to say here is that supposedly, and this is a known fabrication. You could just Google it online and it's been addressed before. It's a well-known fabrication. But anyway, he says, Junaid allegedly says, you are trying to reach Allah, which is every Muslim's goal is to please Allah, right? Yes. You want to please Allah. We're not reaching Allah because you can't reach Allah. We're trying to please Allah. We're trying to worship Allah. That's all of our goals, to become close to Allah, close as in we want to please him to as much as possible, right? Mm-hmm. So we'll assume that's what he means by reaching Allah. You want to please and worship Allah.
Hopefully.
But that's not actually what he's saying, because at the next sentence he says, yet you haven't reached Junaid yet. Like you haven't reached my status. So let's reword this. And this is how you could tell it sounds totally ridiculous. He says, you are trying to reach the status of Allah, but you haven't even reached the status of me yet. So first of all, whoever wrote this, Junaid is never going to reach Allah. He's never going to reach the status of Allah.
Not how it works.
Right? Never. And just even forgetting that whole logic, where did we skip Rasul in this whole process?
Well, generally for Sufis, like they can't just like put the Prophet or something inside of there because their whole thing is that they have secret knowledge that he didn't have. So that's kind of like we can't be conversing with him, sharing secrets.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't.
So and again, just to just to go back to the Quran and the Sunnah. I mean, we say this line. I don't even know how many times a day if we're praying, right? Iyyak na'budu wa iyyak nasta'in. Ya Allah, you're the only one we ask, and we're the only one that we worship, right? We have hadith from Rasulullah where he says, if you ask Allah, right? He didn't say ask your sheikh. He didn't say dhikr your sheikh's name. He didn't even say dhikr my name. And whenever you throw in these miracles like walking on water and flying through the air and all these different things, you already know you're in for a nice little shirk ride. But it's common within Sufi, even in Sufi methodologies, that if Allah does bestow some kind of miracle on somebody, let something miraculous happen, it is taught within Sufi methodology, within Sufi circles, that you actually are supposed to keep it to yourself because it's just for you. So, and it's also a common thing that if you see someone performing miracles, doing things, walking on water, flying through the air, or whatever, and they're not practicing the Quran and the Sunnah, then know that they're a devil. So this whole thing is telling you to commit shirk under this guise of this guy's walking on water. So if any of this happened, it didn't happen with Junaid Baghdadi or Imam Junaid. If something like this were to happen, a Muslim would look at that and say, that person's a devil. They're trying to get me to commit shirk and chant their name and worship them, and they're walking on water. And you would just walk away from them because that's all they are, is a devil.
Especially if someone you perceive to be shaitan came to you and said, "Hey, practice Islam." Like you should know. Okay, hold on. What am I doing? What am I? If he's telling me to practice Islam, what am I doing? Oh yeah, I was.
Yeah, exactly. And it reminds me of that other thing. We had another story from where it was like shaitan like told somebody that he was Ahl Bayt or something.
Yeah, so you should respect me or something like that.
You should. Yeah, these things are just ludicrous, and to promote these things, like it's fine if you believe in it, but it's not fine if you actually think you're practicing Islam if you believe in this stuff.
And don't post it publicly for everyone to see. That's another thing too. Like I don't believe you're supposed to say it in public. So y'all just be openly saying. I don't think that's how it's supposed to work. You know.
Yeah. It's actually it's actually a major sin to even commit minor sins in public like that. But anyway, so that's that. We covered that. I mean, this is the type of stuff that happens in deviant cult groups. Is they promote these wild, crazy Sufi stories. Just look at, and this kind of brings us into what we're going to talk about today. Is Ramadan, right? So just real quick, our Ramadan plan is that we are going to focus on Islamic topics to the best of our ability, because Ramadan is all about reconnecting with the Quran. It's the month of the Quran, reconnecting with the Quran and the Sunnah, worship, doing as much ibadah as we can, learning as much as we can during these blessed days. So we're going to try to stay away from the drama. We're going to try to stay away from the cult stuff, unless anything crazy happens, which you never know with cult groups, what they might do. They might just decide to start fasting 3 or 4 days after everybody else does, or have to eat a week early. Who knows? Let's fast 20 days instead of 29 or 30. You never know. But we have some shows lined up. So today's show is again, just real quick. So you see that we're doing our show at 5:30. That's going to be our normal show time during Ramadan, because after Maghrib you're eating, you're praying, Tarawih. We're not going to try to mess with anybody's time. So we're going to do it early, try to take up maybe 30 minutes to an hour of your time between 5:30 and 6, just covering some things. Next week's show, we're just going to cover some general broad topics about the sciences of the Quran, just because Ramadan is, it's all about the Quran. It's the month that the Quran was sent down. Then the next week after that, we're going to talk about the Khalifa Rashidin, take some benefits from and reminders from their lives, different incidents that happened during their lives, maybe share some hadiths that they narrated, just all related to the Khalifa Rashidin. That last week, the 423 show is going to be during the last 10 days of Ramadan. So we're going to just be talking about Laylatul Qadr, looking for the signs of it. Some people have the question of what days it's on. We're going to go over some brief tafsir over the surah of Laylatul Qadr. So that's what we talk about then. Then the last show, we may or may not, we might skip it or we might do it depending on what the time's like, because it's going to be basically at the last day or two of Ramadan. So we could go over some Ramadan reflections. It's kind of just up in the air. We can just do open questions. We'll see, but it's going to be, focusing on Islamic topics. So the next thing we wanted to talk about is the actual, a lot of times you'll get, especially when Ramadan's coming up, and because, and there's nothing really wrong with this. We want to like appease or like explain to non-Muslims why we do Ramadan and what's the purpose. And you'll get questions from like your coworkers or friends. Why do you fast? Why do you do it? What's the purpose of it? And we'll give, if we don't know, we'll give a lot of answers like, it's to sacrifice, it's to experience what it's like to be poor, or it's to, you get health benefits, you lose weight, you get rid of the toxins in your body, and all these different things, which are true. But the main purpose, Allah tells us what the purpose of Ramadan is.
In the Quran.
And it's in the Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, yep, ayat 183. And Allah says, "O you who have believed," that's for the Muslims, "decreed upon you is fasting as it was decreed upon those before you, so that you may become righteous," or increase your taqwa, tataqun, to increase your taqwa. So taqwa has a lot of different meanings when you translate it to English. Some translate it as like God-fearing, some translate it as God consciousness, some translate it as righteousness, and it does mean all that. But really what it means is getting close to Allah by doing what he commands us to do and not doing what he forbids us to do. And thinking of Allah within all of our actions before we speak, before we walk, before we do anything, we're doing it thinking of, is this going to please Allah? Is this going to displease Allah? And Ramadan increases that taqwa. That's the whole purpose, right? And we have to, no matter who we are, if we're Muslims and we're fasting during the month of Ramadan, that has to be our focus, Allah. It has to be, and then tying that into what we do on the R2F, the Return to Fitrah group, is that we're trying to connect people that have put intermediaries in between them and Allah. So this is the month. This is the month to, like, you shouldn't be thinking about like, I'm going to try to please my sheikh. I'm going to try to please my murshid, my whatever it is. You should be going back to the Quran and the Sunnah and doing what Rasulullah said, doing what Allah said, and staying, because there's so much within that giant box that during this month, you shouldn't allow stuff that's not going to get you there into your realm. Focus on the Quran, focus on implementing the hadiths and the Sunnah. That's the whole purpose of this month. And if we do that, what happens is, whether it's however you want to do the measurement, an inch, a second, whatever it is, you will improve by the end of the month. And alhamdulillah, Allah has allowed all of us, we probably should have started the show with this, but Allah has allowed all of us, if we're here listening to this, to reach the month of Ramadan. Alhamdulillah. And we've been making dua, sometimes we forget, but since the last Ramadan ended, remember, we made dua to reach the next Ramadan.
Yep.
And some didn't make it. And may Allah, we send our condolences to all the family members, all the Muslim family members that have lost loved ones, that have not reached Ramadan. May Allah forgive them. May Allah bless them. May Allah grant them Jannatul Firdaus. So we send our condolences to all those family members. Specifically, Uncle MJ lost a son just recently. So we send our prayers, we send our condolences to him and his family. And there's, if anybody has children or will have children, that's a feeling of losing a child is something that you can't really explain, and words do not compensate for it. The only thing that does compensate for it is we say Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, and we turn to Allah.
Yeah.
And this is the perfect month to turn to Allah, and Allah is the only one that can heal our hearts. So
Especially
that's the
because
purpose of Ramadan.
yeah, especially because during Ramadan, there's a hadith I have from Abu Hurairah, who reported that the Messenger of Allah said, "Every action a son of Adam does shall be multiplied. A good action by 10 times its value, up to 700 times. Allah says, with the exception of fasting, which belongs to me, and I reward it accordingly. For one abandons his desire and food for my sake." So this is absolutely, Jafar said it before, but this is absolutely the time for you to get, if you're falling a little bit off, if things got in your way, this is the perfect month for you. Because isn't there a hadith, Jafar, of like if you go to Umrah during Ramadan, counts as a Hajj, and I believe there's other hadith about like if you fast during Ramadan all the days, and then fast 6 days in the following month, you get like rewards for fasting like your whole life. So there's there's so many benefits to this Ramadan and taking advantage of it while you're here, while you're alive, because multipliers are very good, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. And our brother Hanif, when he made Umrah during Ramadan. So like he got the credit of a Hajj, alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
May Allah accept that from him and bless him. And like I said, we can't even, like the hadith you just mentioned, it just reminds like there's like specific reward for different actions. But then like the reward for fasting, Allah says that's like with me, which pretty much means like I'm not even going to be able to, you guys are not going to be able to comprehend the reward
for fasting
that Allah has for us just for fasting.
The sacrifice you did.
So we take advantage of it. Let go of all the drama, forgive people, reconnect with family, and make sure that everything that we're doing is not for show. It's not for, camaraderie. It's not for social ties. It's all for Allah's sake. If you're reestablishing family ties and social ties and that types of thing, make sure you're doing it for Allah's sake. If we're doing iftars and all these different things for blessings or to have blessings for other people, make sure we're doing it for Allah's sake, not to show off, not to make it seem like you're a pious person. Everything for Allah's sake, and reconnect. And hopefully, especially for those that may disagree with us, we may disagree with them, when we refocus, and at the end of this, when we start coming back and talking about the various issues that we normally focus on, we'll be closer together in agreement, because we'll be having conversations and discussions that, it's really focused on pleasing Allah, and we can carry that in until, the next Ramadan, inshallah. So one thing we just want to touch on real quick, and Ramadan's already starting, but it would have been nice to do it before Ramadan, but here we are, first days. Everybody should be fasting today or latest tomorrow. If you're starting after that, especially if you're in the United States,
if you're starting on Monday, ya Allah,
you might have a little problem. You might miss the required days, so you might want to check that out. But everybody should be setting up goals for Ramadan. Like, we shouldn't treat this like any other month. We should be looking at it as, I want to learn something new. I want to increase my ibadah. I want to start a new sunnah practice, and everybody has their own little things, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. But for, yourself, what you can and can't do. Ramadan, there's different opinions of like, whether you should set realistic goals or unrealistic goals, but just set some goals and strive to achieve them. Yeah. Because like, for instance, myself, I set my goals, and some goals I set that I know is like on the boundaries of my capability. So I might not achieve them, but if I do, I'm really satisfied. But if I don't, at least I'm in a place where I did actually get a lot done. And I always try to add something up, and this just, you could do what you want. This is just my own personal thing. I try to do something that, one, I make sure that I don't tell anybody what it is, because that means it's like truly between me and Allah.
Mhm.
You know, if anybody says, "Hey, what's your Ramadan goals?" I don't tell anybody, and I don't let anybody know I'm doing it.
Yep.
Because that's like you get the more blessings because there's no showing off involved. It's solely for Allah, and it's just like a secret between you and Allah.
There
Real
you go,
secret.
Jaffer. Sufi Jaffer. No, I try to have goals set for like a week, and then if I can accomplish that goal that week, I can increase it more after that. So that's kind of my go-to. But for everyone's different, and as long as you're trying, which is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
No, just let it just go
And
by, and you're just like, oh, I just fasted, and that was it.
yeah. You know, and again, like if that's where you're at with your like if you're having like if you're a person that's not really fasting or not really practicing and you haven't like maybe just fasting all the days might be your goal, but it's something that make it more than whatever you were doing before
Yeah.
Ramadan started.
Strive to be
You
better. All right, this is the month for it.
Yeah.
So.
And I always try to add something on that I will try to continue as my regular routine after Ramadan.
Yeah.
Right. So that's just a little thing on goal setting. And if anybody wants any help in establishing Ramadan goals, we have people that you can talk to. We can give advice. We have plenty of people that have experience with like setting goals and secular or religious things, so we can help with that. No problem at all. Just send us an email, and we'll be there for you guys. Just a little brief thing on some common Ramadan mistakes, and we're not going to get into like a thick discussion on some of these, but just some. And we're not going to like provide all the proofs. You can contact us later if you want that information. But these are just some things that we kind of run across in our lives and experiences with some of the mistakes that people typically make with Ramadan. So when you fast, whether it's Ramadan or just like a voluntary fast in a regular year, fasting begins when the adhan for Fajr is called, when Fajr comes in. It's not we say sunrise. It's not the sunrise that's you may see on the news where like their sunrise is like when the sun is up in the air.
It's like 7:45.
Our sunrise is Fajr. Yeah, exactly. It's like a whole hour difference, right? I've had people and I had debates with people who were telling me that, and even Muslim, their whole lives, that they can eat until Fajr is over. I've had people say that they can eat until they make Fajr. So that's not what it is.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's as the adhan is being called for Salat Fajr, that's when you have to stop eating.
Yeah.
If you have food in your mouth, you can swallow it, but besides that, you're done. It's not after Fajr. Exactly. It's not because basically, like if you have food when the sun rises, basically you're just having like, okay, I'm not gonna eat lunch today. That's it. No lunch for me today. I'll have dinner. Like so, you're not really fasting after you. All right.
And I've had people like you said, like the food in your mouth, like you finish it, or the drink in your mouth, you finish it. I've had people like they purposely will serve the big breakfast, waffles, eggs, beef fry, sausage, right like a minute before the adhan's called, and like, oh well, we could finish our plate. Nah.
Also, I mean, like this probably not a thing, but like I swear I don't understand people eat so much food for suhoor. Like I can't do that. Like today I had 3 dates and some water. Like I'm perfectly fine. Like I don't know. I guess everyone's different, but I am. But for me, I can't eat that much food for suhoor.
No, it's the same for me. If ever like, alhamdulillah, when I do get a nice breakfast, because every now and then someone will cook breakfast and you got to eat. Yeah. But whenever you eat a lot during breakfast, those are like the hardest fast days because like, so you're like, oh, I'm starving again, But I mean, there's science behind that too, because like the less you eat, the easier it is for your body to go into ketosis, where you're not feeling those hunger pains and all that. But in another topic, as far as breakfast, that say, for instance, if you wake up late and you wake up, the adhan for Fajr is already called, you can't get up and eat and drink because you missed it.
You can,
because sometimes like, you have to eat breakfast.
No, you don't. No, you don't. Like it's sunnah for you to eat suhoor, obviously. But it's not like a farther you have to do. Like you can still fast without having to eat suhoor. Like, I promise you can. It's okay. You're not gonna die from not eating one day or for 18 hours. You'll be fine.
People love that breakfast. And of course we always have the moon sighting every Ramadan.
Moscow.
It's like
Yeah.
it's a rule. Like we'll have because there's a lot of confusion about it because everybody seems to be doing it differently. You have people that use calculations. You have people that use physical sightings. You have people that just follow the announcements of other countries. You have the people saying like, you know, Saudi Arabia is lying about when the moon is just because they want people to miss Ramadan and stuff. Like this happens every year without a doubt. Without getting like there's lots of videos online that go in depth on this topic. Sheikh Okasha has a great video that kind of summarizes the whole thing in a nutshell. It's not that long of a video, and he's one of the top scholars in the world right now. But the long and short of it is just follow your community.
Thank you.
Whatever community your community is doing, wherever you're going to be celebrating the Eid at, just follow them.
Unless they're doing like 3 days after, then probably not. But besides that, generally follow your community. All right.
Yeah. If you're starting a half a week after the rest of the world is starting fasting, there might be a problem. Might be a problem.
Something I don't know.
Yeah, like in my for instance, my community, they use the calculation method, and they they announce when Ramadan starts several days before it's even time to sight the moon.
Yeah,
I don't personally agree with that, but that's my community. And the main thing about Ramadan is about ummah, community. So you follow what your community is doing as long as it's within the Quran and the Sunnah, and the method that they do it is within the Quran and the Sunnah. So the last one, go ahead.
I follow community, but like it's this app on my phone, the Muslim Pro app. For the past like 8 years, this app has never been wrong for Ramadan start. So like low key, they're out here. All right. So every time it's like, okay, it's the second. Like, oh, you sure? I go there, it's the second. So alhamdulillah.
Yeah, and what it really boils down to is how the scholars look at actually physically sighting the moon, because we have the technology now. We know exactly when it is. Yeah, they're never, the calculations are never wrong. Like we know exactly what it is.
Exactly.
But it just boils down to differences of opinions, and it gets it's not complicated, because I don't want to say anything in Islam is complicated, but it does take a reading into the fiqh of it and the various proofs that the scholars use for how they determine it, which for us laymen, it's good to know if you want to research it, good Islamic knowledge, but don't go to your local masjid and start picketing and be the only one that's starting fasting on Sunday while the rest of your community started on Saturday. Don't be that guy.
You guys are salty. How could you? Like, I feel you. It's okay. It's okay. Just make a good day. Okay. Just make a good day after Ramadan's over. All right.
Yep. The last one that I had on here was that, and this is a big one, and it's kind of a touchy thing. But women, just because you are pregnant or breastfeeding does not give you an automatic pass to skip fasting, right? It's a lot. Basically, you have to have a known issue where your pregnancy or your breastfeeding is going to cause a health risk to yourself or to the baby. And for most cases, that is not the situation. Most women can fast or breastfeed, or can fast and breastfeed and be pregnant without causing any additional risk to the child or themselves. So consult with your local scholars, consult with Muslim medical professionals about it, because you go to a non-Muslim doctor, they're going to tell you straight up, yeah, no, you can't fast, but they're not looking at the religious aspect of it. So talk to the appropriate people and see if that excuse for not fasting actually applies to you. Just don't say, oh, I'm pregnant, I'm not fasting. Like you have people that get pregnant like the week before Ramadan starts. You're not even a month, I'm pregnant, I'm not fasting. That's not how it works.
That's not how it works. And also, not to go too deep, but like the whole idea of eating for two is not really a thing. On average, the pregnant lady needs to eat about, I think, 300 more calories a day. So you're not gonna die from not fasting. I promise you'll be okay, sister. Alhamdulillah. All right.
Yes. But there are some people that, for whatever reasons, like they might get real anemic, or they have other different issues that going on with their pregnancy that may cause. But you have to look into it. Just don't, because like again, this is Ramadan. Like I've talked to people about this issue, and they're like, "Oh, well, I'm just gonna make it up." You might not get the chance to make it up. You
Pick up
know, you might not get the
rings.
chance. So fast, you know, as much as you can. You know, don't just take the easy way out and say I'm gonna make it up, or I'm gonna have my kids make it up, or whatever people say to just to skip Ramadan. There's a tremendous amount of blessings in this, and we should be looking for reasons to fast instead of reasons not to fast. I was listening to listening to a lecture that actually my wife was listening to, and I caught a piece of it. And apparently there are people from like Muslim countries, or not, I guess, well, Muslim countries, that they actually travel outside of
Purpose.
their country on purpose during the month of Ramadan so that they don't have to fast for the month of Ramadan.
That is wild.
It's like, what?
That
You know,
is
because
wild.
yeah, and like there's actually, and it's so silly because there's actually a fiqh ruling for people who do that, and it's like,
Mhm.
wow, people think of any reason to try to get out of fasting.
Okay, so a question about the Jaffa is that how far would the traveling have to be for you not to fast? Because in back then, obviously, with camels or horses, it's much different now with cars and airplanes. So is there a certain
Right.
distance that people have to travel where they say, okay, I'm not fasting anymore during this day?
That's a fiqh thing. There's lots of
Okay.
different opinions on it. I've seen opinions as low as 25 miles,
Okay.
but the Hanafi, the standard, the most common determination is the same distance that where you can make traveling salat
Mhm.
is the same distance that you could not fast.
Okay.
And I believe that's around 49 miles, I believe it is.
It's easier for me to
But
just
you can,
fast.
yeah, these are like, and again, um the allowance to break your fast while traveling is there, and you're not actually doing anything, like you're not getting any extra blessings by saying, oh, I'm gonna fast even though I can travel. Like, you don't get any extra reward. You do actually get reward for following the sunnah and breaking the fast if you want to. But like, for instance, if I'm traveling an hour to work or 60 miles to work, this is my normal routine travel. Technically I'm in travel status, but this is my normal day. It's not hurting me anymore. It You can keep your fast.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you use a little bit of common sense, use your judgment. But as far as like the actual mile cutoff of when you can actually break your fast, and there's also different opinions of when you can break your fast. Can you break your fast when you make the intentions of travel, or can you break your fast when you start traveling? Can you break, or do you break your fast after you meet the mile mark?
Mhm.
So that gets down into fiqh, that gets down into the different
Yeah,
madhabs and school of thought.
I can see why
But
that'd be an issue because we're not like a travel today, as I mentioned before, like it's such a like a enjoyable, like luxurious thing where you're not like I'm walking in the desert for freaking 100 miles to Mecca. Like, I'm not doing that. So like you're on an
yeah,
airplane flying, you're comfortable. Like, so I can
yeah,
see why that would be a topic of a consideration.
yeah. So just to give you guys a preview of what's going to be happening after Ramadan. After Ramadan, we're going to get back into more of our normal topics. But just to give everybody a heads up, we are going to be shifting away from like specific TMOA direct related stuff, unless they keep doing nutty stuff that we'll have to address as we go. But the R2F platform, we aim, inshallah, with Allah's help and guidance, to address spiritual abuse, cult groups, and deviant groups within the Ummah. We're not just an anti-TMOA page, right? That's not what our purpose is. Of course, because a lot of us came from there and it's fresh and they keep doing silly things, we have to address them. But we're going to move more towards educational topics, addressing other deviant cult groups,
Big fish.
and these sort of things. So just be prepared for that. Like, we aren't here, as our brother Hanif says very emphatically, we are not here for your entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
So all the people in TMOA that are riding the fence, that watch our show every week just to hear the drama and just to keep moving on, but you are actually taking any of this information and using it to make action, this is going to be gone for you.
Yeah.
We're not going to be here for you to do that. You have to take this information and start taking steps towards correcting yourself, correcting your family members, and getting closer to the straight path of Islam. So please start making those moves. Everything that we cover will always be a benefit to everybody, inshallah. It will be centered around topics of misguidance, spiritual abuse, and these types of things, educating ourselves and others with Islamic topics. But just know that we're not going to be here talking about all the TMOA shenanigans for the rest of our existence. That's just not what we're here for. We will have an interview of a cult member who recently left the group. And then we also will be doing a show covering the Risala Ruhi for laymen, where we actually break down line for line the Risala Ruhi, which is the sole support of the belief of the seven sultans. So with that, that's pretty much our show. If there's any questions, you can ask them real quick in the chats.
Yeah, quick 3 minutes. For the person that was going on a tirade in our YouTube comments, brother, you have to chill. Okay, that's all I have to say. Brother, you have to chill. And also, like, maybe like just a lot of things. That's all I'm saying. I need to chill.
Yeah. Persian Empress mentioned that most ladies can't fast pregnant due to the extreme nausea and illness that comes naturally with pregnancy. Yes, that is true. So there's if that applies to you, then that applies to you. But then there's also like people, like sometimes women experience those things at certain stages of the pregnancy. So if you're not in that stage where like you're throwing up everything and different illnesses, then just don't take it as a blanket policy that just because I'm pregnant that I don't have to fast. You have to look at your own personal situation and what's going on with you. Talk to the professionals, talk to the scholars, and see what you should do. Lady Bree has a question. Yeah, go ahead.
You answer your question, sister.
I don't think we missed any questions either.
No, we're good.
And again, I'm for the lady question, like I'm just giving you a general thing. Talk to ladies who know better. I only know a little bit. That's not my forte. That they're gonna know more about what how to advise you. Maybe we're on a time delay. Maybe we shouldn't.
Nah, I'm checking. She hasn't said anything yet.
Okay. Well, alhamdulillah, I hope everybody has a great Ramadan. We hope that some of our shows and topics that we cover will be beneficial. We have a great audio. One of the things that we're going to start posting, inshallah, is in our R2F chat group. There's like we have great discussions in there, great discussions. And again, they're not about TMOA, it's Islamic discussions. And every now and then, some of the members just drop gems. And what we're going to start doing is, inshallah, sharing those messages on our YouTube platform. They're going to be called R2F chats. We're just sharing information. Just so you know, it's not anything formalized. It's just us chatting. So there may be like minor errors or different things made with people making references to certain things. So just keep that in mind. But the information that's going to be shared is going to be very motivating and inspiring, and you can learn a lot from these different messages.
I will have shows where we interview folks. It have to be said after Ramadan, of course. So if you want to come on and be interviewed or tell your story, message Jafar or someone in R2F, and we can get you set up to come on the show, inshallah.
Yep, we have someone lined up that we will be doing probably the week after Ramadan. We'll be doing that interview where this person tells their story, and either that week or the week after. But the first 2 episodes after Ramadan are going to be the interview with the one guest and the covering the Risala Ruhi for laymen. That's going to be our 2 shows after that. So I think that's it for questions. And if you have any questions, you can also email us anytime. If you have our contact information on WhatsApp, you can message us on WhatsApp. We're always available. And just my last words, Ramadan Mubarak to everybody. I hope Allah accepts it from myself and all of us and increases our blessings and forgives us for our sins and continues to guide all of us onto the straight path. I mean,
I'll call this out. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين آمين. السلام عليكم.
Islam, y'all.